Dogman and Bigfoot teaming up against humans in suburbia. Now, before I begin this narrative sent in to us by someone claiming to be a law enforcement officer in the Midwest, I need to say a few things about a number of comments I've deleted which came in response to last night's Bigfoot vs. Dogman video that YouTube suppressed almost completely. Almost none of you had a chance to view this video, yet certain crazy, ignorant, obnoxious fans who view themselves as Bigfoot gatekeepers decided I needed to be dogpiled on for sharing your stories sent in to me. You know, we get requests to do Bigfoot and Dogman stories, which feature the two together. Then when we do the stories, we get attacked by people calling them fake in an obnoxious and vaguely threatening manner. I'm not going to be like Lucasfilm and accuse all Bigfoot fans of being nasty things, but there are certainly a lot of people who think it's okay to openly attack you simply for discussing squatches and big feet. Not so with Dogman, where the audience seems far more open to listening to what other people have to say. If you already know everything there is to know about Bigfoot, you need to be doing your own channel and sharing what you know, not attacking those of us doing your work for you. All I'm doing is repeating stories, either that people send me or that I find online. I rewrite everything so that it's 100% original, but I'm generally going by what is sent to me and what I find when I search around. I don't know which of these stories are true and which might be folklore, and I have a feeling that you don't know either. If you were trained by a cryptid researcher, then I would ask you to share your research and your methodology with the rest of us. Although I do not view myself as a researcher, I view myself as a writer and artist who is presenting other people's personal experience or research for the most part. I was trained in paranormal and 14 research by John A. Keel, who wrote the Mothman Prophecies and other important books that you should definitely search out and read. I do know how it's done, and I do know the difference between research and hearsay. Generally, none or very little of what we present here on this channel would stand up as proof of anything in a court of law. This is a channel about folklore for the most part, and folklore, even though it can often turn out to be true or have truth behind it, would be considered hearsay in a legal sense. You're unlikely to find clear proof of the existence of any cryptid on this or any other YouTube channel. We're just sort of here sitting around the campfire, sharing spooky stories, and wondering how many of each of these stories might have truth behind them. That having been said, there are a number of you who seem to be requesting Dogman and Bigfoot battling or teaming up stories. I do have some of those I was going to do this month. I took such abuse from either a few nut jobs or maybe just one creep acting as several jerks last night that I'm remembering why I switched this channel from Bigfoot to Dogman in the first place. There are those who only want their opinion expressed about Bigfoot, but I'm sorry. Bigfoot is a cryptid. Humanity does not officially recognize it as a living thing, at least not yet. Any discussion of Bigfoot, until it is declared real by the scientific mainstream, is technically the sharing of legend and hearsay, again, at least for now. I don't know which legends are true or false, and I'm interested in hearing all the stories, until such time as we actually know enough about any of this subject to even be able to determine which stories are real or not. And in that spirit, we present this new account sent to us by someone claiming to be a local police officer. I do not know if this is true. The officer, or the troll, does not give me his or her name, nor do they provide the exact location where this all took place. He claims this is because he doesn't want to lose his job. Maybe that's true. Or maybe this is someone sitting in his mom's basement making the entire story up. Maybe it's someone living down the hall in my building trolling me. I have no way of knowing. But I do know this story freaked me out when I first read it. If this is real, this is a huge thing. Of course, it may be a figment of someone's imagination. I just can't say. So please keep all of this in mind as you listen to this next story, sent to us anonymously by someone claiming to be a highway patrol officer in a Midwestern state in the USA. He won't even say if he's talking about Michigan or Ohio or Wisconsin or where. But he seems adamant that the cryptid situation in the Midwest is about to hit a boiling point, and it might soon become impossible to keep this all hidden, even with a complicit corporate press machine lying constantly to cover up the existence of this unfortunate reality. When the Dogmen and the Squatches take over your town, will it even be covered on the news? Or will it be covered over? Since none of us really know facts from lies any longer, it's going to have to become something we each do our own research on and come to our own conclusions about. I am not arguing for any one point of view, but I am arguing for more open-mindedness. If you know more about Bigfoot than the rest of us, attacking us is not going to spread what you know. Try sharing your information if you truly possess real answers. Will everyone believe you? Of course not. But more people will believe you than they do now when you bully everyone with a different or original angle or thought. If you call people who submit stories to us names when they have a different point of view from you, you're locking yourself in your own little dark closet, and your opinion ceases to matter to anyone. I don't listen to people bullying me, I just block them. How about you? So in the spirit of open curiosity, we present this next email sent in to me, which might be of vital importance, or might be utter gibberish, made up to trick me and you into believing something that isn't so. If you, in your location, know about anything which either supports or debunks the following account, I would love to hear from you. I am not presenting any of this as fact because I was not there. I'm presenting this for the usual purposes of entertainment and to see if this rings a bell with any viewers. Could this be real? Could it have happened near you? Do you have any more info to shed light on what I'm about to read? Or conversely, can you disprove any of the following account? In any of those cases, if you have anything to add, please either leave a comment or contact us via our email or phone number, both of which are mentioned at the very end of the show. And without further ado, let's launch into this particularly harrowing account, which I'm gonna call Dogman and Bigfoot team up to wipe out human civilization. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I don't know if the world will still exist by the time you read this email. It seems as though there are active movements today trying to destroy Western culture. I believe the lunatics pursuing decreasing the human population and removing agency from the vast majority of the human race, reducing us to living in pods and eating insects, have miscalculated. Just as a huge YouTube channel can collapse under its own weight if it stops gaining followers, so too a human civilization considered too big to fail, built upon the concept of constant ever-increasing growth, can sputter and literally become extinct if it stops expanding. The elites looking to reduce the human population by staggering amounts don't understand that doing this seals their own death warrant as well. We are a species who can only survive by constant expansion. It's expansion or extinction, and our own global leaders have decided to contract. These people never consider the other humans, the proto-humans, the almost humans. I'm talking about the Dogmen, the Bigfoot, the dwarves, the elves, the fae folk. Oh yes, I know from personal experience that they are all real. And yes, they do tend to move in wherever humans move out. This was never something species threatening before, but in 2022, as an officer out every night on the highways, I see how things have changed. Just since the beginning of the pandemic, the strange ones have become far more open about their presence. They don't even seem to care if you see them anymore. And the most terrifying recent change to me personally is that these non-humans seem to have begun to team up with each other against not only humanity, but our entire sense of reality. These creatures you see are both real and not real, or at least to us for now. If they decide to become fully real in our reality, it will no longer be our reality. Just as the USA stays on top because other countries trade using the dollar, other entities and species use our reality as the basis of their existence. However, if humanity is deposed as leader of this planet, so too will our reality be overthrown. Insanity might become the new sanity. On some days, I feel that this has already happened. I recently, for the first time, was literally physically accosted by one of these cryptids as others stood by, expressing amusement at my predicament. I'll give you the details. There was a car off the road, and I called it in before pulling over to investigate. The car's passenger seat door was open, and the individual who most likely had been driving was lying face down on the grass to the right of the car. It looked as though he had been pulled out and left unconscious on the ground. Standing around, staring at him, were 6 or 7 hairy, upright beasts. My initial impression was that I was seeing a group of dog-headed men. There were actually 2 young squatches in there too, which I did not notice until later. They all just stood there, staring downward, and that helped me to get close. No eye contact to alarm them as I approached. I needed to get close to that man and determine if he was alive or if he needed medical attention. I just sidled up to him as though the crowd were any other crowd of bystanders, as though they were human. At first, they just allowed me in, as anyone else would have done. After some time, I began to hear a very low growling, and I sensed that the crowd was turning against me. I stood up, trying not to let any of my fear show. They had not impeded my movement or taken any action against me so far. I had to continue to assume that I was the one in control of this situation. I used to have a dog that was an angel to me, but literally sent a prowler to intensive care one time, so I'm pretty good at signaling my alpha status to canines and having them fall in line and be agreeable. This time, it wasn't working. I'm not sure which of them started the growling, but it spread. One upright canine was whining, as though he were intensely stressed out. It was not a good vibe. I needed to get both myself and this injured unconscious victim out of this dangerous scenario and away to a hospital. My initial plan to call for an ambulance seemed a quaint notion in that situation. I got lectured off the record afterward by my boss that I should have called for backup and an ambulance, then waited at a safe distance. My argument back was that the accident victim was in bad shape and needed immediate attention. I recognized that I was placing myself at risk, but I saw it as necessary to get that man medical attention before he left us. So I grabbed him by the shoulders, and I began walking backward into the crowd of upright walking man-things. They cleared a path for me, and I dragged the man to the side of the road. Then I opened the back door, lifted him in as gently as I could, closed the door, and began the walk around the car to the driver's seat so that I could make my getaway from this scene. So all I needed to do was walk up the side of the car, turn, walk around the front end, and get in that driver's seat. In that moment, though, it felt like that was not going to happen. The upright dogs and the long-legged gorilla people were all facing in my direction. I refused to look up at them, but it seemed that they were looking at me, and that they were slowly crowding me. I changed my mind and turned around, deciding to walk around the rear of the car instead. A canine jumped me from behind. One of the dogs, probably the shortest of them, leaped onto my back. It was not a small dog, just small compared to the others. Imagine a large German shepherd on your back, claws dug into your clothing, trying to reach around your neck to bite your face off. That was what was happening to me. When the other creatures saw this, they became emboldened. I didn't just see Dogman. I saw Sasquatches as well, and all of them were growing surly and unhappy. The shortest of the canines stood between 5 and 6 feet tall, while the bigger ones were taller than any man I had ever seen. The Squatches were, I guess, between 6 and 7 feet tall themselves, and they gave the impression that they were young. Not young as in children, but maybe teens or young adult Sasquatches. That was just the feeling I got off of them. I'm hardly a Bigfoot expert. I do want to note and emphasize that there were both upright canines and Sasquatches together, all of them bipedal, along the side of the road. I thought at the time that they had gathered to gawk at an accident, but judging by their unfriendly reactions toward me, I kind of wondered almost from the start if they might have even caused the accident in the first place. Together, they seemed to possess a sort of communal culture or thought process. It felt like they understood what was happening a whole lot better than I did, and that I'd better get off their turf as soon as I could manage it. I want to mention here that I am not talking about werewolves. I am talking very strictly and literally about upright walking canines, and I am talking about ape-like men that I assumed were Sasquatches. I am not talking about that werewolf with hands and the big broad weightlifter chest that you show in your thumbnails quite often. These were various kinds of large canines that stood on their hind legs. They had various kinds of fur, but were generally dark. They had paws, not hands. I never saw them drop to all fours, so I don't know if they were capable of running that way, but they seemed very stable and natural up on their hind legs. It didn't look like a trick they had learned, and they didn't look uncomfortable or unbalanced. I ran around the front of the car, and the crowd of them came at me. I turned my back to them, using my attacker as my shield. When his own kind slammed into him, it caused him to lose his grip on me, as well as pushing me forward ahead of the pack. I got most of myself inside the driver's seat and reached to start the engine before I got my left leg in. The creatures ran into the car door, which in turn slammed hard into my shin, giving me a hairline fracture that I wouldn't find out about till later. You want evidence of cryptids? You should feel the pain in my leg when it's gonna rain. That's my proof that cryptids are real. I started the engine and I drove, even as my foot was still caught in the door, and I was screaming in pain. It hurt so bad that I was nearly delirious, but I managed to keep my right foot on the gas, and I managed to steer that wheel well enough to keep me on the road until the beasts gave up and allowed me to go. It hurt so badly pulling my leg into the vehicle that I screamed and cried, and then I must have gone on autopilot. I literally don't remember what happened after that until I woke up in a hospital bed later that night. Somehow I had driven both me and the victim to the emergency room. I wonder if I had a guardian angel doing the driving, because I literally have zero memories after bringing my leg back into the car. I've read a lot about Dogman and Bigfoot since this event, obviously. I've read that they can run between 20 and 70 miles an hour, depending on the account in question. I don't think I got to witness anything like that, unless they ran after me during one of my blacked out memories. I think they just crowded around until I started to get the car up to speed, and then they just backed off, sort of how it might happen with a crowd of humans, or any other kind of hostile bunch of animals. I guess I'm lucky none of them ran after me, as I was not in much of a state to do anything about it. Another utter mystery to me was why I never pulled my weapon, not even to fire it in the air and possibly spook the animals. That's something that should have been a natural thing to do, and yet I never considered it, as far as I can remember. The entire event had an odd quality to it, as though logic itself had become illogical. Nothing was ordinary about any aspect of that event. So the victim survived. At first, he told me that he crashed because he came upon those creatures blocking the road, and he had to swerve to the right suddenly. He landed in a ditch, and then he said the creatures dragged him out of the car and whomped him. Curiously, they did not tear him apart, they did not eat him. They just acted like they were in Grand Theft Auto and dragged him out of his own car to beat him up. By the way, he later denied having told me any of that, and insisted that I made up all the stories about hairy monsters. This is why I'm not talking about this story on Discovery Channel or something, but instead telling it anonymously on your show. I've got nobody to back me up that this really happened. I think the most terrifying aspect of any of this was that the victim told me that the creatures had formed a roadblock of their own accord. They seemed to be doing this in a premeditated way. They were acting like the highwaymen of old, except they didn't take the guy's money. Their intentions seemed purely to mess the guy up, to bully, and terrorize him. This is not, usually, how animals behave. In fact, this is far more like the behavior of human criminals than anything else. I saw them, though, and they were not human. They were monstrous kinds of animals, too intelligent for the forest, but too savage for human society. And if they're banding together now, if they're joining forces against us, at a time when our own leaders are trying to squash us down, then this might be a harbinger of a disaster far worse than anything our species has had to endure since the last ice age almost wiped us out completely. But it's not like the whole world would cease to exist. It would only go away for us humans. In our place, there would be plenty of dog-headed and ape-headed humanoids, like the ones who caused that accident. I hope nothing comes out of any of this, and that you can look back on this email years from now and laugh about it. But right now, I'm living a real-life nightmare. Every night, I look around me, and I see signs that Dogman and Bigfoot are teaming up to wipe out human civilization.
Hey, Willie here with 5 new t-shirt designs for you guys. By request, we're adding this lovely Chillin' with Dogman t-shirt in both the no text and full text versions. In addition, we've added this lovely green night vision I got herded by Dogman line of apparel. Not for you? How about my mother is a werewolf? I chose Dogman over my wife. Not to mention our original line of great t-shirts, including our best sellers, I Free to Capture Dogman, and I Know the Dogman is Real. Links are in the description, so check them out today. Special 20% off discount code until June 30th, 2022.
We'd like to thank our EP Rod, who's kind enough to share his WOD. We'd like to thank dear Rodney Walster, whose contribution is not smallster. Please join us in thanking Rodney Walster, our newest PayPal Club member. Now he gets to see our weekly Sunday Uncensored Dogman stories, including our new one, which has a title we can't even say on this channel. Hot Rod Walster also gains access to our over 24 hours of secret Dogman stories, all far too wild to ever run here. This is a particularly harsh time for certain of us scary channels on YouTube, and so we've also been given a new thanks button so that you can make one-time donations to us. Here with all the deets on how you can become a member of our channel is international TV spokesmongrel Henry Lee Dogman. Hank? Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button. Or Join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that when it cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.